It had been a few weeks since I had witnessed the events in the assembly hall. I had been assigned to work the cornfields, which is a task I normally never receive. Every task at the compound is carefully assigned based on the subject's strength and personality type. Outdoor work is usually assigned to subjects like Dorian, who are strong and seem to have a harder time following direction. I guess the open space makes them feel less confined. I prefer the security and orderliness of the indoor work, because being outdoors for recreation is much more enjoyable than the arduous outdoor labor. Those who do outdoor work spend their recreation inside, so all subjects get equal time indoors and outdoors. Thinking of Dorian unsettled me, which was a feeling I had become all too familiar with these past several weeks. I was still not accustomed to it. Besides the curious speech given by the director to the Whitecoats, there was this issue of why I was assigned a task I had never performed before, and why hadn't I seen Dorian out here in his usual post or in the cafeteria. Come to think of it, I hadn't seen Dorian since he was being led from the room at the end of the southern corridor. Was Dorian the Subject I that the director and Whitecoats kept referring to? Subject I. Makes sense, because he definitely arrived at the compound after several of the recruits who came after me. He definitely arrived after Subject H, Hermes, who I have known for quite a bit. The questions about the assembly kept bombarding me. The glowing room must be where these lessons they were speaking of are administered. But why? Why did Dorian, or rather Subject I, need increased lessons? Would I be given these lessons? This thought terrified me. Had I already received these lessons? This thought terrified me even more. If so, why couldn't I remember what the lessons were? This thought made all further thought impossible. My head was absolutely spinning. I felt all these ideas being jumbled up like a snowball hurtling down a mountainside, gaining momentum until that single snowball had formed an avalanche, which would surely bury me. I have a habit of speaking out loud to myself when I start snowballing like this. The thought of a snow-covered mountain filled me with an unexpected longing. How long had it been since I had seen that precious vista of my childhood? I suddenly realized I hadn't even asked a question like this in a very long time. Then I found myself silently mouthing the words, gratitude, because our lives depend on air, water, soil, plants, humans, and other animals. And then my questions seemed unimportant. I became abruptly aware that the day was getting shorter, and I had accomplished very little work. The watchers would not be pleased. I recoiled at the thought of their gravelly voice calling me out in the assembly hall. Subject E, you are below expectations for the week. I instantly regretted spending most of the morning having this silly, confused conversation with the only company I could find out here among the corn stalks. The solitary sentry that secures our crops from the poaching ravens, invaders from the alien outside world. I secured the short scythe I was using next to the hammer in my tool belt. I hurried off to work on the next part of the field. However, I found my legs taking me in the opposite direction towards the compound, towards the glowing room. Without being conscious of it, like an itch I hadn't even realized I was scratching, I wanted to go to where I had last seen Subject I. Perhaps I could get some answers to my questions once I discovered what he had been doing for these past weeks. My doubts and suspicions had flared up again. Yet another strange new feeling. Once I get refocused on my task, it's very rare indeed that any worries or concerns resurface. But here they were, all at once, like an avalanche.